NATO foreign ministers are meeting in the Latvian capital Riga amid worries over a build-up of Russian troops on the border with Ukraine. The increased military presence has fueled fears, particularly from the US, that Russia could be planning an incursion into Ukraine. 7 years ago, Russia, of course, invaded and then annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine. Since then, Russia has been accused of supporting a separatist insurgency in the east of the country. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg says any invasion by Russia would have consequences.
We see a Russian military build-up, we see heavy armor, we see drones and combat-ready troops, and we call on Russia to be transparent, because this is unprovoked and unexplained. So therefore, Russia needs to be transparent. And as I have stated several times now, there will be a high price to pay for Russia if they once again use force against the independent sovereign nation, Ukraine.
Putin, responding to what NATO said, warned that deploying troops to Ukraine would represent a red line for Russia and will trigger a strong response. Well, for more on this, let's head to Shona Murray in Brussels. So, Shona, good to have you on the programme. Now we're hearing strong words from both NATO and Russia over Ukraine. There's a real sense of tensions rising, no?
There certainly is. Of course, we don't know what Vladimir Putin's plan is for Ukraine. I mean, this has been on the table since 2014, as you mentioned there, since his annexation of Crimea. But certainly in the past few weeks and months, there has been a build-up, a military build-up, a severe escalation of a military build-up on Russia and Ukraine's vast border. We've heard from the Ukrainian Prime Minister that as many as 100,000 troops are there. And we've heard from Jens Stoltenberg from NATO saying that these are combat-ready troops. So it's obviously a huge concern. On top of that, we've seen Vladimir Putin engaging in a disinformation campaign in Ukraine and supporting Alexander Lukashenko's campaign on the EU's border with Poland and Lithuania and Latvia, with a deplorable situation where he took innocent young women, children, and had them in freezing temperatures as a way of destabilising Europe. So there is real concern and certainly rising tensions.
Yeah, so lots of strong statements come from both sides there, Shona. Ukraine's Prime Minister was in Brussels trying to shore up support from the EU. Now, he's been speaking to Euronews. What's he have to say?
That's right. I mean, he talked about the destabilisation campaign of Lukashenko and Putin and how the whole point of that was to thwart European integration with Ukraine. But he also warned that this would, of course, destabilise Europe.
This destabilization inside of Ukraine to stop Ukrainian European integration path, but also it's bring destabilization inside of the Europe because of this migration crisis, because of this energy crisis, because of this cyber attacks. So this all bring destabilization both in Ukraine and in the European Union. So this all is very connected.
That's Denis Shmyhal, who's the Ukrainian Prime Minister, warning about Putin and Lukashenko's plan to destabilise Europe, using in particular the migration crisis, which is an ongoing issue in Europe, and of course, not to mention that very worrying military build-up on its border with Ukraine.